Very good. So once again, let us start off with the first module. Welcome to the second batch of the UAE Tax and Regulation course. There are 14 modules in total. We are going to start off with the first module today. Let me open. The name is Business Environment. I will share, by the way, I will share a summary material for you guys. Okay. So the learning objectives of the course today are to know a little bit about the Emirati legal and court systems. We should be able to identify different types of companies and licenses that are there under the Emirati law. We should be able to talk a little bit about anti-money laundering and anti-bribery legislation. We should be able to define the functions and purpose of the Federal Tax Authority. That's the beginning. I will just quickly tick mark so that we can move to the next part of it. So let us talk a little bit about the United Arab Emirates. As we know, this country is one of the most prominent countries of the world and the region. As you can see, the country has a rich history and a population of around 10 million people living here as of 2021. It's part of the GCC, Gulf Cooperation Council. So a rich culture, etc. But the key point is that it was formed on 2nd December 1971, and the names of the Emirates are Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Sharjah, Ajman, Umm Al Quwain, and Fujairah, and naturally Ras Al Khaimah, which later on joined. We are going to talk a little bit about the government and legal system that is there. Naturally, we have a monarchy here. Monarchy means a singular ruler, which is the president. But naturally, you're going to know a bit more about how the country is run. So these are the Emirates: Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Sharjah, Ajman, Umm Al Quwain, Fujairah, and Ras Al Khaimah. Now, what happens is there is a Federal Supreme Council, which is the highest political and legislative authority of the various 5 authorities here in UAE. And this has been provided for in the constitution of the UAE. It consists of the 7 absolute rulers, 7 emirates, 7 rulers, who are the sheikhs of each emirate. That's the Supreme, Federal Supreme Council. Then we have another council called Federal National Council. It's it's kind of a unicameral parliament of the Emirati people consisting of 40 members. So FNC is like parliament and it has 40 members. Half of the members are appointed by the rulers, with the second half being elected. So this Federal National Council plays a vital role. It is largely advisory to the Federal Supreme Council, drafting a lot of legislations, debating policies, etc. That's what is done. Members of the Federal National Council serve a 4-year term. Basically, it's like the same. That's why this is a partially elected council. And then naturally, we have the federal judiciary. So judiciary, the court system, it's an independent legal system that has multiple sources. In the initial days of UAE, Sharia law dominated UAE, and then there was local law as well. And there have been various sources from which that local law has been taken up. As a matter of fact, individual emirates are also autonomous to some extent. In certain matters, it is provided in detail in the constitution as to which matters the emirates have autonomy and which matters are in the hands of the federation at the federal level. So they have, each emirate has their own executive council as well. Under the constitution, each emirate is allowed to either establish its own judiciary or to merge with the federal court system. And the federal court system has different tiers naturally. Courts of first instance, which is the trial court, court of appeal, and then court of cassation. Cassation is effectively the supreme court. The state or emirate judicial system is also trial, appeal, and cassation courts. The Emirates of Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Ras Al Khaimah have their own court of cassation. So this is a kind of a mix-up of the overall. Now, one of the primary sources of law, which is the Sharia law. So, Emirati legal system is influenced by, this is a key point for us to remember. It is influenced by not only Islamic law, but French law, Roman law, Egyptian law. So, French, Roman, and Egyptian. Other than the Islamic law, these are the three, major sources. Sharia is a body of religious law forming part of the Islamic tradition. So basically, a number of principles are there. There are 5 Islamic principles for business in the Sharia law. Sell lawful items, uh, honesty. I mean, you can't, deceive or anything. Uh, Good treatment of the staff, no deception or fraud, and charity, waqf. So we are going to know a little bit more about as well. Uh, these principles, the Islamic jurisprudence, what are the sources of these? Uh, these are the sources. You can see Quran, Hadith, Ijma, and Qiyas. These are the main 4 principles. So Quran is the central religious book of Islam. It has 114 chapters and verses. Living in UAE, it is important for the expatriate community to know that this is how the Sharia law comes into force. So different verses in Quran they guide on various different principles of civil law as well as commercial law. Then there is Hadith. So this is the second tier body in the Sharia law after Quran. So Quran is the primary source of the law. Then there is Hadith. Hadith, literal meaning of the word Hadith is saying, speaking. So the sayings of the Holy Prophet or the practice of the Holy Prophet, they are reflected in Hadith. So body of Hadith provides more detailed and more practical. Think of it as the decree law versus the executive regulations. So decree law is the overall constitution, and then the executive or implementing regulations, they amplify, they explain the broad guidance. So Hadith is like the executive regulation to the Quran. Think of it in this way. Then another thing is called ijma. So what is ijma? It is the consensus. The Arabic word ijma comes from jama, meaning together. So it basically ijma is the consensus that the scholars come at. That for this particular matter there are certain differing opinions, but if we look at it and we conclude that yes, this seems to be the right way in line with the Sharia law. So that is known as ijma. And then there is another thing called qiyas. Qiyas is the analogical reasoning. So if you do not have a precedent, but because the Sharia law started off 1400 years ago when the Islam advented in Saudi Arabia, but so quite a lot of things were there, but naturally as the time progresses, new matters come in, and so many precedents are not available, and that is where qiyas, meaning the analogical reasoning, is used to come at the most fair and just ruling related to various matters. Okay, so that's the concept of qiyas. Now we are going to go to the legislative process for the UAE. According to UAE's constitution, federal laws are enacted to cover the central aspects of the federation. Now, this has been taken out from the constitution itself. So certain things are kept at federal level: foreign affairs, federal judiciary system, finance, federal finance, postal and community services, federal public works, education and public health, defense, civil aviation and security, census. All of these matters are at a federal level because these are very strategic level matters and they can't be delved to emirate level. That is why it is kept at federation level. Federal laws are intended to regulate labor and various other matters, quite a lot of civil matters, commercial matters, company law matters, etc. Now, how are laws actually issued? So what we are going to do is we're going to look at the process of how laws are they come into existence. Submission to the Federal National Council. The cabinet, when I say cabinet or this course, wherever you hear the word cabinet, that refers to cabinet of ministers basically. Federal Cabinet of Ministers prepares a bill, submits to the Federal National Council, which may pass, amend, or reject that bill. Okay, that's the first step. Cabinet prepares the draft of the law, and submits to the Federal National Council. If you recall, Federal National Council was akin to Parliament in other countries. Then, if the bill is accepted by the Federal National Council, the Cabinet then submits the bill to the President of the Federation for his approval and presentation to the Supreme Council for ratification. We need to remember something, that President is not the absolute power in the country. It is a federation. Even the name suggests United Arab Emirates. So that means the rulers are equally participating in the ruling of the country, and a president has majority of powers, but yes, ratification from the rulers is needed. And where does that ratification happen? It happens in the Federal Supreme Council. So the president submits it to the Federal Supreme Council for ratification, meaning the others say that, okay, we are fine with this law. So the Federal National Council, if a Federal National Council rejects a bill, they can amend it naturally. And if the President of the Federation or the Supreme Council find a bill unacceptable, they can send it back to the Federal National Council for amendment, or the President may promulgate a new law after the ratification of the Supreme Council. So this is the by default legislative process of UAE. Effective date, laws are in force as per the law, as per the UAE constitution, as per the UAE legal procedures. There is a duration of 30 days. Laws are in force 30 days after the date of their publication in the official gazette, unless other date is specified in the said law. So the default period, we should remember, 30 days after publishing in the official gazette. Retroactive date, that's another very interesting angle. The laws do not have a retrospective effect, but when necessary and in matters other than in criminal matters, the law may provide otherwise. So default treatment is that if a law is promulgated, it is UAE does not say that, okay, this law has just been published in the official gazette, but it is effective 1 year before. That doesn't happen. Okay, unless it's a very rare situation, and in criminal matters it does not hold good. So anyways, now we're coming to another angle, decree. What we just saw was usually it is referred to as act, but you might be hearing mostly that there are decrees that are issued in UAE. So we are going to read a little bit more about what exactly is meant by decree. In the event a law must be promulgated as a matter of urgency, in the event that a law must be promulgated as a matter of urgency, between the sessions of the Supreme Council, the President together with the Cabinet may promulgate a law in the form of a decree. So think of decree as an ordinance in the context of other countries. Sometimes President directly issues a law without superseding the Parliament. That is known as a decree, a federal presidential decree or the ruler's decree. The decree has the force of law provided its terms are not inconsistent with the Constitution. The decree laws are referred to the Supreme Council within a maximum of 1 week for approval or rejection. Just a second, let me double check if it is still recording. Hopefully it is. Yeah, it is recording. The decree laws are referred to the Supreme Council within a maximum of 1 week for approval or rejection. Even the decree has to be ratified by the Supreme Council. Now we're going to talk a little bit about courts as well. The Constitution provides for the establishment of a Supreme Court and a federal court of first instance. The Supreme Court, we also call it Court of Cassation in UAE. But naturally, if court of first instance has been provided in Article 95 of the Constitution. The Constitution also permits each emirate to have the power to retain its own judicial system, which is happening right now. Uh, Emirate level courts of cassation or the emirate level Supreme Courts are also there. As a result, there are federal courts and local courts in the UAE. Courts in each emirate have jurisdiction in all juridical matters not assigned to the UAE federal courts under the constitution. So those matters which are not the jurisdiction of federal courts, they are dealt at the emirate level. The federal court system consists of the Supreme Court, Court of Appeal, and Court of First Instance. So as we mentioned, three-tier system. Supreme Court, the top court, then Court of Appeal, and then the Court of First Instance. Judgments delivered by the Court of Appeal are subject to an appeal to the Supreme Court, which is based in Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi is the capital of UAE. The Emirates of Abu Dhabi and Ras Al Khaimah have independent judicial systems as such. The structure of the judicial system is similar to federal court system. Now, there has been a lot of talk about common law, which is English law as well. So common law courts are there in UAE, but they're in two of the financial free zones. One of them is Dubai International Financial Center, and the other one is Abu Dhabi Global Market. These are very famous, world famous financial free zones. And the reason that common law courts have been established there is to attract foreign direct investment and making these financial free zones as the hub, as the regional hub in the whole Middle East and North Africa region. Their decisions are not judicially binding. So, although they are used as very strong persuasive arguments before the mainland courts, accordingly, judges in the UAE are under no obligation to take any consideration of such courts that are there in DIFC or ADGM. But those decisions are considered. They're not ignored. Now we're going to talk a little bit about free zones and trade licenses. Basically, free zones, there is a full-fledged law on free zones as well that was issued some time ago in UAE, the whole objective of the free zone law or setting up free zones was to allow 100% foreign ownership. But it is an interesting fact that I think with effect from 2023, even in the mainlands, now 100% foreign ownership is permitted. That was a big change that took place in 2023. So in most cases, they are dedicated to specific industry. So you see, there are 50 odd free zones in UAE. Majority of those are in the Emirate of Dubai, by the way. As you can see, some names have been mentioned here. DIFC and ADGM free zones, they are so huge and they're so prominent and very significant and critical that they have been highlighted separately. Why? Because they are financial free zones. So the level of regulation that you find in DIFC or ADGM, so those who are attending this course for the first time, or those who are relatively newer to the framework of UAE, you guys should remember these two names, DIFC and ADGM, because these are financial free zones and they are very, very important in the context of UAE, because you will find a common feature that majority of expatriate community, they are worried about dilution, control, protection of their investment. And by setting up their holding companies or even branches or rep offices, etc., in these financial free zones, they feel a bit more comfortable. Why? Because number one, common law is already there. So the people around the world are more prone, or they're more comfortable with the common law. So when they find that DIFC, ADGM provide common law support, they opt for it. And then the regulation is quite strong in these two zones. That's another reason. DIFC and ADGM are the UAE's two main financial free zones. DIFC operates within a common law framework to ensure the highest international standards. DIFC courts act as independent administration of justice. So ADGM, again, they have both these financial free zones have very strong, regulations. There is a full-fledged rule book that they follow. And again, there are English law courts are available in ADGM, but there are other free zones as well, non-financial free zones as well, around 40 free zones are there. And as you read earlier on, that they are industry specific. Dubai Sports City, Dubai Outsource Zone, Dubai Internet City. So industry specific zones have been provided, D-Tech, etc. So 100% non-Emirati expatriate ownership is allowed in those free zones. So while the non-financial free zones generally apply local law and federal law, if required in collaboration with the DIFC courts, they can apply English language common law. And I think that has happened with the Ras Al Khaimah RAC ICC, where they have collaborated with DIFC and they are providing common law, decision making there as well. Now, certain free zones have a different structure. They offer a certain type of structure which is known as offshore. Now, we need to remember something. Whenever we look at international business in other countries, whenever you talk about offshore companies, sometimes people take the meaning of the word offshore as a free zone or a free trade zone company. But here we need to remember that free zones has a very specific meaning. Free zone is a designated area, usually within the confines of a boundary, and that's where the companies are set up. But only a very few free zones in UAE provide a particular structure which is called an offshore company. Now, what is the difference? The only difference is that an offshore company in UAE cannot trade, cannot engage into business activities. They can do very few things. They can own investment properties, they can open a bank account, they can hold shares, etc. But these are the only things they can do. They cannot buy and sell commodities, etc. Not to mention that, yes, there are transactions happening even in the free zone, offshore companies as well. But that is not entirely in line with law. UAE permits formation of offshore companies in Jabal Ali, Ras Al Khaimah, Ajman. So, offshore companies are allowed in certain of these free zones. They cannot trade in the UAE, but may own stock in the company. They can also, do other things as well, which I told you. Offshore companies are formed in respective free zones and are subject to same court systems as applicable in the companies formed in the onshore free zones, right? So that's the concept of it. So Ras Al Khaimah courts and other RAC government bodies entered into collaboration with DIFC courts in 2016. That's something that I told you earlier on. I'm repeating this. So in 2016, a collaboration happened between the Ras Al Khaimah courts and the DIFC courts. And so the free zone in Ras Al Khaimah are now providing an option, kind of an opt-in option to DIFC law. Trade licenses, what is that? It's an instrument which allows a business, a company to trade inside UAE. In order to conduct business, your trade license is required. There are so many different types of business activities that are allowed. Trade licenses are issued by regulators, basically. For example, Department of Economic, DED. Now, this name will be common. DED in Dubai, DED in Ras Al Khaimah, DED in Abu Dhabi, etc. So this Department of Economic Development is basically a part of the Ministry of Economy. Yeah, okay. So around 2,100 business activities have been provided there. These activities are broadly divided into industrial, commercial, professional, and tourism activities. DED, Dubai trade license are either commercial, industrial, or professional. So Dubai, we're talking about Dubai right now. So let's look at these three categories. Commercial license grant the recipient to buy and sell commercially within the UAE. So basically trading, if you really think about it. So a number of different categories are there: mechanical, aircraft, bags, packaging, even financial services, etc. These are all different types of commercial license that are afforded to various applicants. What about industrial licenses? As the name suggests, this is basically manufacturing licenses. Industrial licenses confer the right to manufacture goods. So again, bread, food, carpets, coating, anything that can be produced, processed, built, manufactured. These are all covered under the industrial licenses. And then naturally there are professional licenses. So like the accountants, auditors, etc., lawyers, or so many other service categories like applied research, nursery, saloons. All of these are services and they fall under the professional license category. Foreign ownership of commercial entities. So as it is mentioned, until 1st June 2021, foreigners were not allowed to form or wholly own a mainland company, but that changed. Mainland companies were required to have an Emirati shareholder with 51% shareholding. But recent change in companies legislation now permits expatriates to own 100% foreign ownership. So now I'm going to ask a question here with the participants. So you guys know that, um, there was a scenario, a situation whereby the 51% shareholding was a must for a local Watani shareholder. The local guy from UAE, citizen of UAE, had to hold 51% share. But there was a way that through which expatriate foreign investors used to kind of control the entire business. Can somebody tell me what was that method in which the shareholder was only a figurehead? He was not really running the business. He could not do anything. Who is going to answer this? Can somebody tell me what was the way those expatriates, adopted to safeguard their business, to make sure that they have control while still giving 51% shareholding to a local shareholder? Who's going to answer this? Naveed, are you going to speak or?
Yes, Assalamu alaikum, sir. I think it's kafala system, if I remember.
Sorry, say again.
Is it the kafala system?
Kafala system. What would that be? Can you please elaborate a little?
Wherein the local would be a partner in the business, as well as like he'll be just a nominal partner, whereas the expatriate would be the real partner over there. But in other terms, should be the general partner.
Okay, okay. Let me ask another person. Mr. Mohan, can you unmute?
Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Mohan, let me ask you something. Have you ever heard about a trust deed? Do you
No, sir.
know?
No, sir.
Uh,
No.
See, okay, fine. So, since you
I
don't,
know, but it's mandatory 50% shareholding is required mandatory. I know, sir. In depth, I don't know, sir.
this changed, by the way. In
Yeah,
2021, this rule has changed.
yeah.
In those days, what
Yeah.
expatriate foreign shareholders used to do was they used to sign a trust deed with the local
Okay.
Watani shareholder. And in that trust deed, it would be mentioned that this gentleman, a citizen of UAE, is actually holding these shares on behalf of the foreign investor. You get my point? So
Yeah.
that local shareholder, it was mentioned clearly in that trust deed that the local shareholder is not authorized to do anything at all. Like he cannot open a bank account, he cannot claim any profits from the business, he cannot claim any liquidation proceeds. Basically, he cannot claim anything. He cannot breathe without the permission of the foreign shareholder in when it comes to the business. So in that way, the hands were tied up, and while it was just a tick box to comply with the regulation. So effectively, the business was in the control of the foreign shareholder itself. But that matter was later on resolved when the mainland regulators also allowed 100% foreign ownerships for the expatriates. Okay. Now,
Okay.
yeah, this now there is no need to have a local shareholder. And there are certain categories in which local shareholders still required. Certain types of business categories still require 51% shareholder holding of a local person, a citizen of UAE. Okay, there are certain categories. In addition to making this change, there was a federal law of number 26 of 2020, which authorizes the UAE cabinet to establish a committee which includes representatives of the relevant authorities with a view to proposing activities of strategic impact and the measures required to license companies to operate in those areas. So a law was issued basically in which it was addressed as to which activities we can give the 100% ownership and in which activities we are going to retain the 51% local ownership. So I think there were two lists published. So one was the positive list and then one was a negative list. Cabinet provided that any eligible activity must be carried out under a legal entity in the form of a limited liability company or a private joint stock company. The positive list specifies the minimum share capital requirement for each activity, which varies minimum 7.5 million dirham to 10 million dirhams for agricultural activities, 2 million to 100 million for industrial activities, 15 million to 100 million for certain service activities. These requirements are in line with those which are set out. It's a big decision basically. So this is just an overview. Okay. And then there is a negative list as well. The FDI law, foreign direct investment law, sets out a negative list with 13 activities ineligible for 100% foreign ownership regime. So that's called a negative list. So those are oil exploration and production, post telecommunication, defense, road, air transport, printing. That's a very interesting angle. Printing and publishing. Again, in this industry, you have to have a local partner. Insurance activities, commercial agency, okay, certain recruitment activities, medical retail, provision of water and electricity, poison centers, blood banks and quarantines, fishing and related activities. These are those 13 activities in which a local partner is a must. In Abu Dhabi, the Department of Economic Development identified similarly 1,105 registered commercial and industrial activities for which non-citizens, whether natural or legal persons, now can own 100% shares. Okay, almost 1,100 activities in. How much was in Dubai? 2,100 activities. In Dubai, the Department of Economic Development now permits full ownership by foreign investors. So total out of those 2,100 activities, 1,000 have been specifically identified commercial and industrial activities, excluding certain economic activities with a strategic impact, which relates to certain, 7 different sectors. That was for Dubai. At national level, 13 activities were identified. Now, we are going to talk a little bit about anti-corruption legislation. So, in order to counter corruption, a law has already been in place since 1980 for combating of bribery and corruption. There is a penal code that is there in UAE. It's a very detailed penal code. Federal legislation, quite a few legislations have been issued. And those local legislations are basically, they get their inspiration from United Nations Convention Against Corruption, UNCAC, in accordance with the federal law number 8 of 2006. So this law is the UAE federal law on on corruption and bribery, and it draws inspiration from UNCAC. On December 21, 2010, UAE joined Arab Convention for Suppression of Terrorism to combat corruption. So, in summary, basically, UAE has a very strong legal framework against corruption, bribery, etc. So, quite a few directives have been issued. There's a federal law number 12 of 2014 as well as federal law number 2 of 2015. So, I would say that this 2015 law was the first law on commercial companies. UAE government has formulated regulations and laws on corruption and bribery, as well as for businesses. This law, as I mentioned, federal law number 2 of 2015 on commercial companies was the first version, which outlines the commitments. Actually, this was a dedicated law. Even before that, there was another law called Civil Transactions Law, but we are going to know about it in a bit of a time. So first law was law number 2 of 2015. You should remember this. Sometimes this comes in the quiz section. When you're appearing in your exam also, this may be asked. This included appointing an independent auditor who is referenced in the register of auditors and accountants in accordance with the federal law number 12 of 2014. So the year 2014 and 15 were the years in which for the first time commercial companies were properly regulated and a register of auditor came into being. Where auditors were properly registered. The law governs the auditing and accounting profession, requiring auditors to have more than 5 years of experience in auditing public and private enterprises. So what you're looking at, Article 234 to 239 of the UAE Penal Code. The specific provisions concerning corruption and bribery are outlined in these articles, 234 to 239 of the UAE Penal Code. They explicitly prohibit bribery and impose severe penalties on those who commit the crime. Accepting bribes by private and public sector employees is a crime. It has been detailed in these articles. Another Article 65 of the Penal Code, businesses are accountable for the unlawful conduct of corruption, asset misappropriation, bribery committed by directors, officials. So this is again Penal Code. So what we are reading is Penal Code references. Now, there is, as I mentioned, if you really ask me, the first law in UAE that addressed businesses was civil transactions law. So this that was promulgated way back in 1985, quite a long time ago. The UAE came into existence in 1971. First civil transaction law was passed in 1985. So employer is legally responsible for the staff members' negligent actions under the civil transaction law. Federal Law number 2 of 2015 concerning commercial companies imposes obligations on the business to avert fraud and corruption. So there are some other laws that have also been mentioned on combating terrorism, combating money laundering. The Federal Law number 9 of 2014 has addresses financial crimes. Then we have cabinet decisions. We have Dubai Law number 4 of 2016. So quite a lot of laws have been passed to regulate the companies and to address financial crimes. Criminal offenses, the anti-corruption legislation is premised on the Federal Penal Code, which includes the majority of criminal offenses. Now, types of criminal offenses have been provided in the Penal Code. The anti-corruption regulation identify following offenses: corruption, misappropriation, financial crime, terrorism, terrorist financing, guaranteeing a corporate loan to a chief or individual in power. So these are corruptions basically. Exposure to classified information, hidden information, insider information, obstructing justice, judicial decisions. Even the judges are not, immune to corruption. Judicial decisions made willfully against the facts, even that will be addressed. Intentional provision of incorrect facts by judicial officers, bias against specific party by judicial officers, giving incorrect information to officials for personal gain. So, all of these are criminal offenses. This we have already read, so this is a repetition. I'm going to go to the next part. Now, we are going to talk a little bit about governing bodies. Dubai Economic Security Center, DESC. It was formed in 2016 by the Emirate of Dubai to oversee and combat corruption and bribery, basically. So we are looking at how Dubai addresses, and memory hook is, remember the word desk, Dubai Economic Security Center. Okay, so the whole idea of this entity is to address, fighting of corruption, asset misappropriation, bribery, etc., etc. All of the financial crimes, the Dubai Economic Security Center. It has the authority to halt stock market trading, revoke, stop, or restart a financial sector. So, acquire bank information. They have a lot of powers to stop the business or, pause the business, etc., or ask any information that is needed. Several government entities are responsible for regulating anti-bribery and corruption regulations in Abu Dhabi as well. So Abu Dhabi also has a number of laws on anti-corruption. There is, Dubai Accountability Authority, State Audit, SAI, State Audit Institution. UAE Central Bank is there. So Abu Dhabi being the federal capital of UAE, central bank is there, and a lot of other governmental authorities are also situated, including the Supreme Court in Abu Dhabi. United Arab Emirates Police Forces, the Dubai Financial Services Authority, and Dubai International Financial Center. So we should remember the DIFC, Dubai International Financial Center, is a free zone. But Dubai Financial Services Authority, that's the regulator. A free zone is regulated or controlled or monitored or run by a regulator. So financial DFSA is the regulator, DIFC is the free zone. Same thing goes with ADGM also. Abu Dhabi Global Markets, ADGM. It is a financial free zone, but that free zone is managed by a regulator. The regulator's name is FSRA, Financial Services Regulatory Authority. So FSRA runs ADGM. Just like DFSA, Dubai Financial Services Authority, runs DIFC. Anti-money laundering, we're going to talk about AML. So whenever we hear the words anti-money laundering or CFT, countering the financing of terrorism, the name that comes to our mind is FATF, Financial Action Task Force. This is the global body, probably headquartered in US, which kind of runs different campaigns and programs, etc., on an international level to to address and counter those practices of money laundering or count the terrorism financing. How can terrorism prevail? If you provide money to it, only then, right? So channeling money to such organizations, criminal or dangerous organizations, that is also within the scope of FATF, Financial Action Task Force. And then there are corrupt politicians and a number of other individuals who like to launder their dirty money, black money. So that is also addressed by Financial Action Task Force. In March 2022, FATF wrote that in February 2022, the UAE made a high-level political commitment to work with the FATF and Middle East and North Africa, FATF, to strengthen the effectiveness of its AML and CFT regime. So UAE has been trying. They have, adopted to the recommendation of FATF, Financial Action Task Force, and now UAE is out of the grey list. So grey list is a list in which those countries who are still not, up to the mark in terms of anti-money laundering or CFT, countering the financing of terrorism regulations and rules, they put them in the grey list. UAE was in grey list some time ago, but now it is out of the grey list. So there is an activity that is performed by FATF. It's called Mutual Evaluation Report. What is Mutual Evaluation Report? Basically, other countries who are, who have a better AML rating and ranking, they go to another country and they kind of do a mutual evaluation of the anti-money laundering practices framework, how effective it is, and then they issue a mutual evaluation report. So there was an activity of mutual evaluation report conducted in February 2020. UAE has made significant progress across its MER recommended actions. Okay. UAE will work to implement FATF action plan by, these are the action points that UAE is working on, demonstrating through case studies and statistics, sustained increases in outbound MLA requests to help facilitate investigations, identify and maintain shared understanding of the money laundering and terrorism financing risk. So many financial institutions are operating here, real estate companies are operating here, and these are all tools to launder money, right? Or to channel funds to terrorist organizations. So these have to be trained. They have to be apprised of what are the risks and how you can address these risks. Showing an increase in the number and quality of STRs, suspicious transaction reported, which is a part of the anti-money laundering, campaigns. So the suspicious transaction reports have to be filed by not only banks, insurance companies, or exchanges where we go for money changing or transferring money from this country to another country, but also some types of businesses which are called DNFBPs, What are DNFBPs? Designated non-financial businesses and professions. So there is financial businesses, there are non-financial businesses. So for non-financial businesses, certain different types of protocols apply, right? But the original objective is the same: to stop money laundering, to stop terrorist financing, right? So achieving a more granular understanding of the risk of abuse of legal persons. So people, you must have seen paper companies being opened, right? So that's the objectives of having those companies sometimes can be to funnel money from one place to another, creating a chain of such companies so that the trace of the money becomes lost if it is too complicated. So this has to be told to market players. Providing additional sources to the financial intelligence unit. So, in every country, usually the central bank is vested with the responsibility of anti-money laundering or countering the financing of terrorism responsibility. And in those central banks, usually FIUs are set up. FIU stands for Financial Intelligence Unit. So in UAE also it is the case. FIU has been set up in the Central Bank of UAE. So how much empowerment needs to be made, that is addressed in mutual evaluation report where another company comes in. So UAE is working strongly on it. And let me tell you that Financial Intelligence Unit of UAE is very strong and very effective, demonstrating a sustained increase in effective investigations and prosecutions of different types of money laundering cases against UAE's risk profile. So, how those money laundering cases are addressed, what is the modus operandi, that is also something that UAE is strongly working upon to improve. Proactively identifying and combating sanctions evasion, including by using detailed TFS guidance and sustained awareness. So what is sanctions? We need to understand. So sanction is like, for example, there are those countries which are actively involved in either bribe or, drugs, poppy cultivation and all those things. So that's a source of criminal proceeds that comes in. Or individual criminals, Dawood Ibrahim or other terrorists, etc. When you go to any financial institution, what they do is even before opening your account or even before conducting a simple transaction of transferring your money from UAE to another place, they would run your name or the beneficiary name in a software, and they are going to search for that name, and that software is connected to hundreds of databases around the world. There is FBI database, there's EU database, there's NSA database, etc. Even UAE has its own database of sanctioned individuals, politically exposed persons. And if a name pops up on that list, that means this is a sanctioned name. So sanction is a negative meaning or negative connotation word. So, you know, uh, people with influence can try to avoid being sanctioned. So that also has to be addressed at a country level. So UAE FATF action, what has UAE done basically based on the recommendations? What they did was they issued a law, first of all, Federal Decree number 20 of 2018, whereby established a committee dedicated to AML CFT objectives. And this was a detailed legislation. And it empowered the central bank to set up a financial intelligence unit as well. There was a cabinet decision number 10 of 2019. Cabinet means UAE Cabinet of Ministers. They also issued a decision. Federal Law number 20 of 2018. This decision related to the Federal Law number 20 of 2018. And the intention was to raise awareness of effectiveness of the legal and institutional framework for anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism. Similarly, another decision was issued, Cabinet Decision number 74 of 2020, with similar objectives. Another, Cabinet Decision of 58, number 58 of 2020 was issued to address the anti-money laundering and CFT issue in UAE. So in short, UAE has issued a lot of legislation lately to address. Reporting suspicious transactions is a key thing. Now, it's a very important aspect as well. As a matter of fact, when in 2021, when DNF non-financial businesses related law was being introduced for anti-money laundering, the Ministry of Economy representatives clearly said that, if you are for example, if you are a jeweler, right, and a person comes in with a bag full of money, don't stop the transaction. Let the transaction happen, but don't tell the other person that you're suspicious. Just file a suspicious report. That's called STR, suspicious transaction report. So that's how UAE catches the criminals. The UAE's Financial Intelligence Unit analyzes suspicious transactions and activities which potentially involve money laundering, terrorism financing, and related criminal activities. The analysis is done using data and reports from the financial institutions or non-financial businesses, etc. And as per law, they are required to have a proper AML CFT setup. They're required to have, they are required to register on a portal that has been set up by the government of UAE. That portal is called GoAML, GoAML portal. We're going to read that also. So now we should remember that, okay, everybody knows that usually AML is associated with banks or insurance companies, or for that matter, exchange houses, etc. But we should also know that certain non-financial businesses, 5 in particular, are required by law to have a proper AML CFT systems installed in their businesses. What are those 5 categories? Real estate brokers and agents, dealers in precious metals, the jewelers basically, company service providers, those who basically support in setting up companies, right? Auditors and accountants, and law firms. So these 5 categories are together usually referred to as DNFBPs, designated non-financial businesses and professions. They have a separate set of law that was introduced in 2021 and even before that. So as I mentioned earlier, software is being increasingly utilized, relied upon to address these matters. And in those softwares, basically the key thing is that wherever you get a suspicious transaction or a suspicious activity, you have to file either a suspicious transaction report or a suspicious activity report. So that report will be kept very confidential. It will not be revealed who has filed the report, and the Financial Intelligence Unit is going to take necessary analysis action, and if there is need, they will take further action. Please remember that AML is a very sensitive topic in UAE. There are heavy penalties. So Ministry of Economy may impose administrative penalties on the designated non-financial business professions for non-compliance with the AML law. Why? In what manner? Non-reporting of suspicious transactions. So one jeweler, for example, they sold heavy amounts of jewelry to someone who was looking suspicious, but they didn't ask too many questions, or they didn't file a suspicious transaction report. And later on, it was it was found out that this guy did this transaction to launder the money, for example. The guy was caught. So if that jeweler had not filed an STR, they will be fined. How much? Failure to report suspicious transaction can attract minimum penalty of 100,000 dirhams and maximum penalty of 1 million dirham and or imprisonment. There can even be jail time involved in this. Now, there can be some exceptions as well. UAE government has announced some exceptions to the law on suspicious transaction report due to professional secrecy requirements for certain professionals such as notary publics, lawyers, independent legal auditors who have obtained the information while providing consulting services or defending the client in a legal proceeding. So this is an exception. A lawyer may become aware of a suspicious situation, but because he is still following the law and maybe fighting the case in the court of law, uh, there is an exception provided to that lawyer, or for that matter, the auditor. So, these are the only exceptions. Portal errors. To correct any portal technical queries, the FIU can be contacted via goaml@uaefiu.gov.au. This is the official email address of the Financial Intelligence Unit. So in case you come across any suspicious activity or something, you can always do a report on this. Now we're going to come to the most burning topic today in UAE's business scenario, which is taxation. Now, Federal Tax Authority is the supreme body, basically. It is a government entity under Ministry of Finance, UAE Ministry of Finance. That it was set up by a law in 2016. So we need to remember the specific roles and responsibilities of the Federal Tax Authority. What does it do? FTA supports three fundamental UAE national priorities. What are those three priorities? This is an examinable question, so pay attention to it. A commitment to continue making the UAE affordable for citizens and residents. That's the first thing. Secondly, enhancing the UAE as an attractive destination for international business and investors. And thirdly, delivering a tax system that is efficient, easy to understand, and therefore straightforward for businesses to comply with. How successful has the Federal Tax Authority been in this? I would say pretty much successful. Although yes, there are challenges. Sometimes taxpayers do face challenges, but we have to give some margin to FTA as well, because taxation is compared to other, very, very well groomed and developed societies like UK, US, where century-long taxation systems are already there. Here it's hardly been 6 years. In 2018, for the first time, VAT law came, right? So this is 2025. So it's hardly been eight years now. So but still, the FTA is very responsive. FTA is managed by a board of directors and chaired by the minister. Whenever you read the word minister, please understand that this is finance minister that we're talking about, and a sufficient number of members whose appointment and remuneration are determined by the cabinet decision. FTA has a director general at the rank of an undersecretary, who is appointed by the federal decree based on nomination by the chairman of FTA and approval by the board. So FTA's strategic objectives: development of an integrated and effective tax environment. Memory hook for you to remember: tax environment to begin with. Achieving the highest level of tax compliance. Memory hook: tax compliance. Promoting self-compliance. Okay. Third one, ensuring delivery of administrative services based on quality. Administrative services. So, like, what is meant by administrative services? Somebody wants to register. So there is a proper mechanism in FTA where a team is available who can, support. Or deregistration. There's a separate department for registration and deregistration, etc. Or processing of requests. So that's administrative support, or even sometimes imposing of penalties, etc. Enhancing the culture of innovation and creativity in the organization by developing and implementing programs that encourage stakeholders to innovate in services, processes, and systems. Basically, technology. Now, FTA is gradually becoming more and more technological. All returns are already electronic. You can file the returns through the portal called Imara Tax. But as a matter of fact, now the e-invoicing law is also on the horizon. Soon the e-invoicing will also start off in UAE. So what are the different functions that FTA really performs? Implementation of laws and regulations. That's the first thing. It attends to these functions by implementing the laws. What different laws are there? Corporate tax law is there, VAT law is there, excise taxation is there. So, international, double taxation treaties are there. So all of this law, FTA, promulgates, implements basically. Collection of data. Why is collection of data so important? FTA's responsibility to collect statistical data and information. it gives you the pulse. If it gives FTA the pulse of business and the economy, like, is the taxation rate appropriate? Are we meeting our strategic targets? Uh, and other encumbrances that the taxpayers are facing. Maybe are we taxing it incorrectly, or we applying tax on certain segment of the business? So all of these matters are analytical decisions are provided by data. Coordination between governments. Naturally, when taxation matters are addressed at governmental levels, the technocrats, the specialists, the experts in taxation, they have to speak to one another. Other than that, politicians will speak, they don't know too much about taxation, wrong decisions may come in. So that's where the authority to authority discussion becomes very, very relevant and important. And compliance, naturally, most important thing that the whole world has moved to self-compliance, self-assessment. So, but in order to achieve that objective, FTA has to raise awareness as well. But there is awareness raising, but there is implementation and enforcement as well. So on the compliance front, FTA does have their inspector. They, tax officers can do their assessments for the filed returns or reassess the filed returns, etc. So that's the compliance side of FTA. So different taxes. UAE does not levy income tax on individuals, but the Emirate levies corporate tax on oil companies and foreign banks. So these two sectors, basically, oil and gas and foreign banks, taxation has been there on these two sectors way before corporate tax, federal corporate tax was introduced. Excise tax is levied on specific goods that are harmful to human health. VAT came into force in 2018 itself. So corporation tax is levied from 1 June. The July is a typo error. It's not July, it's June, 1 June 2023. Who are tax agents? Now, what happened is FTA has created a layer between FTA and the taxpayer. That layer comprises of tax agents. So a tax agent is there to help the businesses comply with the taxation matters. Taxpayer is allowed to appoint another person. So if you really think about it, when FTA was set up, within a matter of 1 to 2 years, there was a 1 to 10,000 ratio. The number of staff in FTA ratio, the number of businesses that were there in UAE, it was 1:10,000. So naturally, there was a need to create another layer between FTA and the businesses, and that layer was called tax agents. So tax agents are people like you and me. After doing this course, you can also become a tax agent. I mean, if you get a grip on this. So the tax agent, the agent assists the person in fulfilling the tax obligations and exercise of his associated tax rights. They communicate to FTA on priority basis. FTA may reply to a tax agent, but may not reply directly or to a taxpayer. That's why it is mostly recommended to engage a tax agent usually. So those wishing to act in the role must satisfy each of the following conditions. What are those conditions? Hold an accredited qualification from a recognized university or institution showing a specialization and practical experience, like a bachelor's or master's degree in tax, accounting, law, at least 3 years of relevant experience as a tax professional, have the ability to communicate orally and in writing in both Arabic and English, have passed any test to meet qualifications. So, all of these matter to be able to prove good conduct, medically fit. Indemnity insurance is also needed in order to act or practice as a tax agent. If you meet all these criteria, then you can apply to FTA to become a tax agent. There will be an interview, there will be an exam. And once you clear that, you can become tax agent. You will be issued a TAN number, tax agent number. FTA may delist the tax agent from the register were any of the following circumstances to arise. FTA is satisfied that the person is not eligible to be a tax agent. FTA is satisfied that continuing to list the person as a tax agent would adversely affect the integrity of the tax system. Dubious people, criminal matters, criminal dealings, etc. immoral person, so they can be removed from the list of tax agents. If the tax agent committed a significant violation of the law, tax law or other law, so that's the whole concept of a tax agent. This was the first module of the tax and regulation course. We have reached the uh, stage where we can now take a quick exam. So let us participate in this. I would request you guys to actually participate in this these answers. So you guys can unmute and help me to select the right answer. Okay? Are you guys ready? Can you guys can unmute? Ramsha, I need you to unmute as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and Mr. Juzar, Mr. Naveed, and Mr. Mohan, you guys should
Yes.
unmute. Okay. Kalma is my assistant. She is an expert, so I'm not going to ask her to unmute. But Kalma, you can answer if others cannot. Okay. Okay. So the first question: which of the following are the Emirates in the UAE? Let me check these. Abu Dhabi, I think it is correct. Ajman. What about Alain? Is it an Emirate?
No.
Dubai is correct.
No, it's not.
Dubai is correct. Ras Al Khaimah is an Emirate.
Yes.
Yes.
Sharjah.
Yes.
What about Masdar City?
No.
It's not.
Jaleen, you can unmute. You can give answers. Okay. And what about Alain? Is it an Emirate?
No.
No. So okay. What about Umul?
Umal Queen also.
Yes.
It's an
Emirates.
okay. So let us submit this.
Startup, I think you
Oh, did I?
clicked Alain.
What did I do? Oh, okay, fine.
You forgot to click.
I selected Alain. Okay, my bad. Alain is not an Emirate. Okay, going to the next question. Okay, UAE was formed on 2nd December. That should be easy, right?
1971.
1971, right? Okay. So we lost one question, huh? Okay. Which of the following authorities are mandated by the UAE Constitution? Federal Supreme Council? Yes. Federal National Council, we read that. Federal Judiciary, yes, it is there in the Constitution. Cabinet, UAE Cabinet of Ministers, absolutely. President and Prime Minister, absolutely. All of these are in the
Yes.
Constitution, right?
Yes.
Okay. True or false? A decree law does not have the force of law. Is this true or false? A decree does not
I
have
think
the
it's
force of law.
false.
Huh?
It's false.
I think it's false.
It is false.
False.
A
Yes,
decree has to be ratified before it can have the force of law. Yeah, decree has the force of law provided in terms that are not inconsistent with the Constitution. So it will be endorsed by the Federal Supreme Council. Okay, which of the following influence the Emirati legal system? Remember four sources. The biggest one was Sharia law. But what about English common law? Is it source of the UAE law?
No.
No,
No, it's not.
it was not. French law, yes.
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 Egyptian law, yes.
Yes.
And what about Roman law?
Yes.
Okay. So let's submit that. Okay, correct. Going to the next question. Which of the following is a geographically demarcated area within the UAE in which 100% foreign ownership is permitted? That should be an easy question. Free zone? Okay. And then we come to another question. True or false? Trade licenses are issued by respective Emirate regulators?
Yes.
Yeah, trade licenses are issued by regulators.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Then we come to question number 8. Failure to report a suspicious transaction suspicious transaction will attract a penalty of, remember, minimum 100,000, maximum 1 million, right? This one.
Yes.
Okay. And then we come to question number 9, true or false. Federal Tax Authority has jurisdiction over the administration, collection, and enforcement of federal taxes and penalties. They do not distribute the revenue. They do distribute the revenue.
False.
Yeah, so this should be false. Yeah, FTA has jurisdiction over the administration, collection, and enforcement of the federal taxes to distribute the revenue and to apply the tax procedures. So distribution of revenue is also part of the Federal Tax Authority mandate. Okay, last question. Select the correct answers. Candidates must demonstrate dash of relevant recent experience as a tax professional. How many years? 3 years?
5 years.
3 years.
Three.
A qualified lawyer or an accountant before applying for a tax agent. Okay, 3 years. Let's see. Yep, correct. Okay, so 9 out of 10. One question we on intention did wrong. Okay, great. So thank you very much, everyone. Inshallah, tomorrow we will join again to do the second module. Okay, guys.
Okay.
So, please connect with Miss Jaleen, and rest of it she can manage. Okay, thank you very much, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be moving to the next inshallah session tomorrow, and that's about it.